The parsha of Sisa, at the beginning, introduces us to a number of concepts. The first is that there's a census, a count of the Jewish people. What is the purpose of the count? Who has to know it? I mean, Kaviyachal, the Rabbanu Shalom knows the count without us. So, what message does Moshe receive to count the Jewish people? And we find that in the Chumash, a number of times, the Jewish people are counted. And the Torah gives us detailed numbers as to what the count was. So there are many ideas here. But one idea, the Gemara says, we have halacha of bitul. You hope to speak about this Shabbos HaGodel at length, but basically bitul is that a small amount is absorbed and canceled out by a large amount. So, for instance, we have the concept of batul b'shishim. Let's say you have chicken soup, and you have 60 liters of chicken soup. And into the 60 liters of chicken soup, 1 liter of milk will fall in. So now you have 61 liters of chicken soup. It's batul b'shishim. We'll discuss whether it's there or not there. That makes no difference right now. But that's the concept. When you speak about people, so in many societies, people are batul into the majority of the society. The individual does not retain his or her uniqueness. And because of that, therefore, they feel that they're unimportant. It doesn't make any difference what I do. So the Gemara teaches us halacha that dover shebeminyan eino batul. Things that go by the count don't become batul. For instance, you go to the store, you buy a dozen eggs. They sell eggs 12 at a time. So the egg doesn't become batul. If you have a tray for egg, even if it's mixed with 60 eggs, it still is a tray for egg. And it doesn't become batul because it's a dover shebeminyan. It's something that is counted individually. So the Torah wanted to teach us that about individuals, certainly about the Jewish individuals, that everybody in Klal Yisrael is a dover shebeminyan. It's counted. And therefore, we don't have an excuse to say, but 60 times people are doing this, so I'll do it also. Because you're not batul to them. You're independent of them. Every individual is itself. We say that regarding the Yemei Adin of Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, the Mishnah in Rosh Hashanah, over in Lafonav Kunei Maron, you pass like the sheep under the shepherd's rod, so it goes one by one. There's no general that I can blend in. I'm part of a mob. Now we all know from bitter experience that when a mob occurs, let's say there are 1,000, 2,000 people demonstrating, so one of them in the middle can do a terrible thing, but nevertheless he's never responsible because he's part of the mob. He thinks he's bottle in it. And the Torah came to say no. There is no such thing as bottle by an individual. And that's why individuals are to be counted, because they are a dover shebeminyan. And because of that, therefore, everyone individually is responsible for one's own behavior. The second idea that in the kisisa, the Torah says that when you want to count, we're not going to count people. We're going to count shkolim, machzis hashekel. Everybody gives a machzis hashekel, a half a shekel, and then that's how we have the count. What did they do with the half a shekel? So that went for the maintenance of the Beis Hamikdash, and for the korbanot, the purchase, the korbanot tzibur, the public sacrifices. And this was like a head tax. Everybody paid. When we discussed building the Mishkan or building the Mikdash, that was all voluntary. Ish asher yidvenu libo, titein es trumasi. Whoever wanted to give, gave. Whoever didn't want to give, didn't give. It's not mandatory. But once the Beis Hamikdash, or once the Mishkan was established, so then the Torah said everybody has to give. It's mandatory. Everybody has to have a chelik in it. And therefore that became the din of the machzis hashekel, that they counted the shkolim, but they didn't count the people. And we find that when Shaul HaMelech mobilized his army to fight, so it says vayifkedeim batloim. So he didn't count how many soldiers he had. Every soldier brought a sheep, and he counted the sheep. He knew how much he had. So it's an indirect count. Again, so the Meforshim explain why, because no two human beings are the same. So you can count items because they're the same. But no two human beings are the same. So therefore you can't go 1, 2, 3, because it's 1 and 1 and 1 and 1. And therefore we count indirectly with the machzis hashekel, because the machzis hashekel, they're all the same. And that's why the Torah says, Asher lo yarbe, v'adal lo yamit. Everybody's the same. If everybody's the same, you can count. But if everybody's not the same, then there's no way to count them 1, 2, 3, because then it's 1, 1, 1. So we have that custom still remains amongst Jews. We want to have see whether or not we have 10 people for a minyan, so we don't count the people. We say Oshia Samecha, we have a posuk. Or we count by visual, but we don't count people, because people are not the same. And that's a very important lesson, especially in a world where everybody is tempted to be the same. And finally, the Medrash teaches us here, Niskasha Moshe. Moshe didn't know what to do. It's one of the strange places. We had it by the menorah. Moshe doesn't know. What doesn't he know? That seems very simple, that everybody would understand that how the machzis hashekel worked and what was the process of using the machzis hashekel to count. So then what's this kasha Moshe? What Moshe that understands Kol HaTorah Kula, that he understands all the secrets of Torah, that understands everything there, he doesn't know. Found it difficult. So it says in the Medrash that the Rabboni Shalom showed him Kaviochel in heaven, Matbeya Shalesh, a coin that was made out of fire. And in heaven they said, Kozeh, like this is what you're supposed to, this is the Machzis HaShekel you're supposed to get. So the Medrash is even more confusing than the original question. How does the Matbeya Shalesh help Moshe understand, and what does he not understand? So there are many possible explanations that the Meforshim have given us, but one that I want to share with you now, before Ma'ariv, that Moshe has a basic question here, which is always a basic question. How can religion, faith, exist with money? The moment you commercialize it, you ruin it. You corrupt it. And I need not give you examples. But, so Moshe said, we want that the Beis HaMikdash should work. There should be korbanos tzibur, and you're doing it with money. Money is the root of all evil. Money is what corrupts everything. Many a holy project has been undone simply because it needed money. So that Niskasha Moshe didn't know what to do. The Torah tells him to take the Machzis HaShekel, and he's taking money, and he's supposed to, so to speak, sanctify the money. So the Rabboni Shalom showed him Kaviochel in heaven, coins made of fire. What does it mean, fire? So fire has in itself the quality that it is the basic invention of life. Without fire, we don't have civilization. That's why you make Bori, Morei, Matzoi, Shabbos, Autumn Rishon created fire, right? Figured out fire. If you have fire, then you can cook, you can warm, you can melt, everything we can do is because of fire. And there's nothing more destructive in the world than fire. Fire burns, and God forbid it destroys. So the Rebbe showed him that that's a coin. A coin on one hand can be the most positive thing in the world. Depends what you do with it. Depends what your attitude is towards it. It depends how you see it. It depends how it is earned and how it is spent. And on the other hand, it's fire. It can be the most destructive thing in the world. How many people have been destroyed by their wealth? Unable to deal with it, unable to handle it. So that is what the Rabboni Shalom showed Moshe. So if you take the Machzis HaShekel, Moshe, and you put it into the Mishkan and into the korbanos tzibur, then it's the Eish is positive. But you'll take it, as we'll have later in the Parsha, and you'll put it into the Egel, so then it's destructive, beyond words. And therefore, the conclusion of Moshe is that everyone has to contribute, but that everyone should contribute to understand what they're doing with it, that it should be for a noble purpose, and shouldn't, God forbid, be something that is destructive. Rabbi Chananya ben Akash, Yomer Rotz HaKadosh Baruch Hu L'Zakos Es Yisrael Leficha Chir B'Lahem Torah Mitzvot Shenema Adonai Chafetz Aman Tzidko Yadil Torah V'Yadil.